Hello, everybody. This is Fun Police, and I'm going to be doing a super rapid fire overview of the patch notes that came out yesterday, looking at all of the balance changes made to multiplayer for every faction and in general. If you enjoy today's content, make sure to like and subscribe in order to not miss out on any future Company of Heroes 3 content. Regardless, let's jump right into it by starting off with the universal changes. So, in general, mortars have received buffs, but are also slower to barrage now. Their abilities are a bit slower. Smoke has had its duration decreased, and heavy machine guns have higher suppression. Overall, good set of changes in my opinion. Mortars could barrage a bit too quickly, smoke lasted a bit too long, and heavy machine guns had this weird thing where infantry sometimes just walked through their fire cones and didn't get suppressed. So all, I think, very solid changes to make them more useful and a little less annoying at the same time. Then we move on to the US forces. The US forces have received a whole bunch of buffs to their main core roster, including things like the bazooka team being significantly buffed, alongside smaller buffs like the Chaffee being slightly more accurate at long range. The only major nerf to their main roster is the M8 Greyhound, who now has a longer reload time. There's also been some doctrinal changes. For the special operations, the Weasel has received a nerf, but at the same time in Spec Ops, the Whizbang has gotten some buffs. On top of that, Spec Ops has also received a buff to its smokescreen, mark target, but then a nerf to resupply operation. The US Airborne has also received changes, receiving a total of 4 buffs, mainly just making most of its upgrades and units cheaper. Overall, I would say the US is winning big from this patch. A lot more of its units seem much stronger after the patch, and it overall seems like there is more variety in what the US can go for. I would say Spec Ops did probably take the heaviest set of nerfs because 2 of its things got nerfs, but maybe the other buffs are making it so that is not as big a problem. Moving on to the British forces, the British forces have received one significant nerf in their infantry section with the Boys AT rifle. They have done a whole bunch of changes to essentially lower its capability against infantry, although they notably have not changed its effectiveness against armored units outside of a bug that is making them far weaker. However, to compensate, they have buffed a ton of other units. For example, foot guards are more effective at close range. Commandos from the Air and Sea Doctrine, both units have received buffs. Gurkhas have also received the buff from Indian Artillery. They've also buffed a ton of different vehicles. The CMP truck, the Humber, the M3 Stuart, the Bishop, the Matilda, the Grant, all of those have received buffs. On top of that, the British Armored Battle Group has received buffs with the AA Crusader being more expensive but more effective, and the Churchill Black Prince being buffed significantly. Overall, Britain seems like it's going to have much stronger light vehicles, and its more expensive infantry will be more powerful, and you won't be seeing just people crutching on infantry sections with AT rifles and then rushing a Crusader out as fast as humanly possible. Which is overall a good thing, as that was a relatively boring way for the British to be played. We'll also see how the Commandos and things like the uh, Black Prince and Crusader perform. Maybe they're a bit better overall. The Wehrmacht has received mostly nerfs in this patch. Panzer Company has gone up in cost. It has been nerfed. Notably, the Kettenkrad has been nerfed by making its communication cables come not at the start of a match. That notably nerfs cheese. The Nebelwerfer got a buff. We saw the Wirbelwind and the Panzer IV both take nerfs. Overall, then you also have the Luftwaffe Battle Group, who has received a total of 4 nerfs to it. The Luftwaffe Combat Group and Infantry Reserves are more expensive, and the Flaks have both become more expensive and locked further into tech. Overall, the big thing for the Wehrmacht is that its ability to cheese and rush out Panzer IVs has been drastically nerfed, and I don't think it will be viable anymore. Just so much of that build that was enabling like Luftwaffe Pioneers into flak guns and all that, and then rushing a Wirbelwind and then spamming Panzer IVs I don't know if that'll be viable anymore. So many nerfs have come down to stop that strategy. You'll probably have to play a lot more fair with the Wehrmacht. Notably, the one benefit is the Nebelwerfer is better, so that makes the Panzer Grenadier Company a bit more useful. And then we get onto the Desert Africa Corps. The Desert Africa Corps has gotten a pretty significant amount of nerfs. So its main roster has seen a whole bunch of nerfs. Uh, Generally, a lot of its units have just either been made less effective, such as the Panzer Grenadier, they have an increased build time like the motorcycle, or they've had a general cost increase. A lot of their light vehicles have received cost increases, overall making them more expensive. There's also a nerf to the Guastatori, who have been raised in price. Their flamethrowers cost more, and they also have less armor, making them less durable. The Stuka rocket half-track has gotten a buff noticeably. It's overall better. And then the Italian Combined Arms Battle Group actually got some massive buffs. Notably, the M1340 and Pact of Steel are cheaper in command points, but the Bersaglieri bolster is also cheaper, while the Beretta took that one command point. But overall, I think this is quite a lot of nerfs to the core of the Desert Africa Corps, especially because there's been next to no real buffs in terms of the core elements of the Desert Africa Corps. And I don't know if all of these buffs were deserved at once, because some of these are quite drastic, such as the 250. However, Italian Combined Arms seems incredibly strong now. The ability to rush out M1340 light tanks alongside fast Bersaglieri is potentially very, very strong. But that is the balance patch. Just to quickly go over it one more time, I think the US core roster has overall been buffed and some of its cheese has been nerfed. The British can no longer rely on AT rifles to carry itself in a game, but a lot of its other stuff got buffed to compensate, some of them being very strong light vehicles. The Wehrmacht largely got nerfs to rushing Panzer IVs out, alongside good nerfs to stuff like the Luftwaffe Battle Group, which was very overtuned. And then the Desert Africa Corps got a bunch of nerfs to its core roster, but it did get some very strong buffs to its Combined Arms Battle Group. How this will all play out remains to be seen, but that is the patch. Again, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to like and subscribe, because there's going to be more content coming to you about Company of Heroes 3. Let me know down in the comments below, what was your... Do you like this balance patch? Do you think there are changes that shouldn't have happened or some that needed to happen? Let me know, and I will see you later. Have a good day.